There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel and another book haul. The first I have for you today is one that you all have read a couple of years ago at least, but I haven't yet gotten to the Caleb Azumah Nelson party, but now I shall. This is his debut, Open Water, which I've heard really great things about. Not consistently rave reviews, but enough rave reviews by people whose reading tastes I tend to share that I'm really excited to read it. It came out in 2021. Caleb Azumah Nelson, at that time, was 26, a British Ghanaian writer in London. I recently saw a photo of him at a reading, and he is a huge man. Oh my god. Just a hulking young man. I hear he writes beautiful sentences. You all know what this is about. Oh. I got a used copy of this, and here is the Waterstones receipt. So it was originally it was originally bought at the Waterstones in Piccadilly on the 14th of January, 2022 for 13 quid. Isn't that fascinating? Well, I'm about to experience my first prose by Caleb Azumah Nelson with you. These are the first few paragraphs for the prologue. The barber shop was strangely quiet. Only the dull buzz of clippers shearing soft scalps. That was before the barber caught you watching her reflection in the mirror as he cut her hair, and saw something in her eyes too. He paused and turned towards you, his dreads like thick, beautiful roots dancing with excitement as he spoke. You two are in something. I don't know what it is, but you guys are in something. Some people call it a relationship, some call it a friendship, some call it love, but you two are in something. You gazed at each other then with the same open-eyed wonder that keeps startling you at various intervals since you met. The two of you, like headphone wires tangling, caught up in this something. A happy accident. A messy miracle. You lost her gaze for a moment, and your breath quickened, as when a dropped call across a distance gains unexpected gravity. You would soon learn that love made you worry, but it also made you beautiful. Love made you black, as in you were most colored when in her presence. It was not a cause for concern. One must rejoice. You could be yourselves. Well, I sure love that. This one would still qualify somewhat as a new release. Came out a couple months ago. I'm a big fan of the French gay writer Édouard, and this is his latest to be translated, Change. And I just noticed, I think it was earlier today, that Scribd, or whatever they call themselves now, has the audiobook in English. This was translated from the French by John Lambert, originally published in French in 2021, the English translation 2024. And it's the more wonderful Édouard gay autofiction. He's one of my very most favorite writers, writing today. Opening couple paragraphs. It's 12:33 a.m., and I start to write in this dark and silent room. Outside, through the open window, I hear voices in the night and police sirens in the distance. I'm 26 years and a few months old. Most people would say that my life is ahead of me, that nothing has started yet. But for a long time now, I've been living with the feeling that I've lived too much. I imagine that's why the need to write is so deep. To fix the past in writing, and, I suppose, to get rid of it. Or maybe, conversely, the past is so anchored in me now that I'm forced to talk about it at every moment, on every occasion. Maybe it has won out, and by believing I'm getting rid of it, I'm only bolstering its existence and its ascendancy over my life. Maybe I'm trapped. I don't know. I recently had to reckon with my pile of 52 books that I was supposedly reading at one time, but 90% of them I hadn't picked up in months. And one of the ones that it pained me to let go of was the 2021 novel by Susie Boyt, Loved and Missed. I was only about 10% of the way into it. It just kept falling between the cracks, despite the fact that I was completely mesmerized by the writing. I absolutely adored it. So it'll be one of the ones I pick up soonest from the books that I had to jettison. In the meantime, I started collecting all of her other works. So here's the other one I got. It's called The Small Hours by Susie Boyt. Susie Boyt is Freud's great-granddaughter, I think. A British writer. And this was published in 2012. And it's about a damaged woman trying to mend her past. What on earth more would I need to know? First two paragraphs. The first chapter is called 18 Months Ago. She had glimpsed this ending 1,000 times, lit it flatteringly in pinks and ambers, scripted its best lines, measuring the syllables and balancing out the soft, rewarding looks. She would not, for all the world, have their final parting fraught. The last 5 minutes would be oceans of calm, dispassionate, blameless, textbook fashion. They would take their cues for conduct from the clock's prim tick. She had woken early that morning in triumphant mood, the lovely dawn in bright white trousers, like a sailor, hoisting her spirits even further. It was unfailing and unarguable, her transformation now, and it was time to, if not spread her wings exactly, because obviously she was still, did it really need reiterating, a red-haired, earthbound woman of 6'1", serious-hearted, not given to literal flights of fancy, intense rather than intrepid, and so on, but it was correct now, surely. Both parties agreed. For her, aged 38 and a half, to walk quietly but with pride in the opposite direction, towards who knew what grand fate. Oh my God, that last sentence was so stunning. Okay, well. First I want to finish Loved and Missed, but can't wait to get to this one too. Here is a book I picked up at a thrift shop. It's a work of fiction by a Saskatchewan writer, and I think it's short stories, is it? And it's published by Thistledown Press in 1997. It's called Landlocked by Helen Mourre. I'm not sure how that name is pronounced, but Mourre, who at the time this was published lived in Sovereign, Saskatchewan. She was a teacher there. I wonder what she's up to now. I'm going to look her up here in a minute. This was published in 1997, as I said. Yes, it is a short story collection. Before I read the opening of the first story, let's see what I can find out. Oh, she was born very close to where I grew up on the farm. She was born, and according to the Saskatchewan Writers Guild profile on her, she lives in Rosetown. And she's written more since then. She has been nominated for a Saskatchewan Book Award. And this collection, Landlocked, was her debut. She's written 2 more books since then. Here are the opening 2 paragraphs. I seem to be doing 2 paragraphs tonight for some reason. The first story is called No Turning Back. Neville and Florence double-check the house, turning down the furnace as far as it can possibly go without freezing the pipes, making sure the African violets and the Boston fern are watered, leaving the key for the Harrisons on the nail behind the calendar in the garage. These small rituals seem to give their departure a certain import. Florence can still not believe Neville has decided to drive out to their daughter Carol's. Carol lives in Alberta, on an acreage, brushing the edges of Edmonton. She has just had her first baby. Carol is 39 years old. Florence was starting to think it would never happen, but she supposes that's the modern way. All right, well, that's a rather plain opening, but I would keep going before I made any decisions about what these stories were like. Here was a book I bought because I did it on audio and maybe ebook as well. Years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, loved it. And I needed a copy for my shelf. And when I found one, secondhand, in pristine, it was at one of the used bookstores in town, I snatched it up. Look at this. It's one of the most gorgeous covers. The Interestings by Meg Wolitzer. Oh, I love this book. It was a book I would love to reread, but even if I didn't intend to reread it, it's a book I need to have on my shelf because I just loved it. I understand it's a bit of a Marmite book, but I thought it was exquisite. 2013. It's about the friendship between 6 teenagers at a summer camp. They meet there in 1974. It was the summer that Nixon resigned, but I think it was 1974, and then it kind of carries forward to the present. Just wonderful. The audiobook, I remember, was wonderful too. Opening paragraph. Just do 1 paragraph because it's quite long. On a warm night in early July, at that long evaporated year, the Interestings gathered for the very first time. They were only 15, 16, and they began to call themselves the name with tentative irony. Julie Jacobson, an outsider and possibly even a freak, had been invited in for obscure reasons, and now she sat in a corner on the unswept floor and attempted to position herself so she would appear unobtrusive yet not pathetic, which was a difficult balance. The teepee, designed ingeniously though built cheaply, was airless on nights like this one. when there was no wind to push in through the screens. Julie Jacobson longed to unfold a leg or do the side-to-side motion with her jaw that sometimes set off a gratifying series of tiny percussive sounds inside her skull. I'm laughing. I can't keep a straight face with that. That sometimes set off a gratifying series of tiny percussive sounds inside her skull. But if she called attention to herself in any way now, someone might start to wonder why she was here. And really, she knew, she had no reason to be here at all. It had been miraculous when Ash Wolf had nodded to her earlier in the night at the row of sinks and asked if she wanted to come join her and some of the others later. Some of the others. Even that wording was thrilling. Oh my God, well, I think you already can tell why I absolutely love this book. The writing was just incredible, and what a gorgeous cover. I tried her later novel that was about feminism. It was one of the worst first chapters I've ever read. I didn't get past that first chapter, but this was a tour de force. And that was a rather big book, and my final book is even tomier than that. It is the collected stories of William Trevor. I also got it at the same used bookstore in town, Perryton Books. There's two great used bookstores in town, Perryton Books and Westgate Books. Westgate Books I've had a long history with since I was a teenager, if not a preteen. And that's where I take my bales twice a year and trade in for books that I might like. And that's how I got The Interestings. And this is, yes, obviously, Collected Stories of William Trevor, one of the greatest short story writers. And it is almost 1,300 pages. I haven't read very many. I think I read his last short story collection, or one of the last ones, and I've read one of his novellas. William Trevor was one of Ireland's most famous writers, and he died about 10 years ago, I think. And I'll read the first couple paragraphs of the opening story, which is called A Meeting in Middle Age. "I am Mrs. Datanka," said Mrs. Datanka. "Are you Mr. Mileson?" The man nodded, and they walked together the length of the platform, seeking a compartment that might offer them a welcome, or, failing that, and they knew the more likely, simple privacy. They carried each a small suitcase, Mrs. Datanka's of white leather or some material manufactured to resemble it, Mr. Mileson's battered and black. They did not speak as they marched purposely. They were strangers one to another, and in the noise and the bustle, examining the light windows of the carriages, there was little that might constructively be said. "A 99 years lease," Mr. Mileson's father had said, "taken out in 1862, by my grandfather, whom of course you never knew. Expiring in your lifetime, I fear. Yet you will by then be in a sound position to accept the misfortune, to renew what has come to an end, to keep the property in the family." The property was an expression that glorified. The house was small and useful, one of a row, one of a kind easily found, but the lease, when the time came, was not renewable, which released Mr. Mileson of a problem. Bachelor, childless, the end of the line. What use was a house to him for a further 99 years? This is so huge that I'll probably end up reading it on ebook or something, because I can't hold this in my hand or put it in my book bag. But I shall overcome the obstacles, because it's William Trevor, people. All right, that's my book haul. Have you read any of these? I look forward to your comments below. Thanks for watching.